year is 2099, and humanity stands witness to an extraordinary finale. High in the Swiss Alps, the Aletsch Glacier, once Europe's longest river of ice, has shrunk to a fragment no larger than a city block. Dr. Elena Vasquez's hands shake as she adjusts her thermal sensors, not from the cold, but from the weight of witnessing history's end. Last reading, 0.3 degrees above freezing, she whispers into her recorder, her voice cracking. She's spent 15 years studying this glacier. Now she's recording its obituary. The silence crushes her ears until a drop of ancient ice hits her boot. Another. The sound of millennia melting, one drop at a time. Each splash echoes like a funeral bell across the empty valley. Around the globe, the same story unfolds. Greenland's ice sheet, which took 100,000 years to form, has vanished in less than a century. Antarctica's western shelf, containing enough water to raise sea levels by 12 feet, collapses into the warming Southern Ocean with thunderous cracks that echo across continents. The polar bears, those iconic symbols of a frozen world, exist now only in carefully climate-controlled sanctuaries. What remains is a planet transformed beyond recognition, where coastal megacities have become underwater museums, where the Amazon rainforest has migrated northward, and where the very concept of winter has become a relic of the past. This is not science fiction. This is the mathematical inevitability of our current trajectory, playing out in real time across a world that has forgotten the touch of permanent ice. Elena checks her satellite feed, her coffee mug trembling in her grip. "Control, are you seeing this? The Thwaites readings just spiked beyond the red line." Through her headset. "Copy, Dr. Vasquez. We've been tracking similar spikes across 17 sites. It's accelerating faster than we modeled." Greenland's ice sheet, once 3 kilometers thick, hemorrhages 500 billion tons of water annually into the Atlantic. The ancient ice shelves of Antarctica, buttresses that held back continental glaciers for millennia, have collapsed like dominoes, their thunderous crashes echoing across empty polar seas. In the Arctic, where polar bears once roamed endless white expanses, dark ocean waters now stretch to every horizon, absorbing solar heat that was once reflected back to space. The albedo effect, Earth's natural cooling mechanism, has failed. Each degree of warming unlocks feedback loops that accelerate the next. Methane seeping from thawed permafrost, darker surfaces absorbing more heat, disrupted ocean currents that once regulated global climate. Elena stares at her shattered computer models, years of work reduced to useless algorithms. She has a choice: publish the terrifying truth and trigger global panic, or stay silent and watch the world sleepwalk into catastrophe. Her finger hovers over the send button. Coastal monitoring stations record sea levels rising not in millimeters per year, but centimeters per month. The great ice sheets that took millions of years to form are disappearing within human lifespans. Earth's frozen guardians, the glaciers, ice caps, and polar ice that once seemed eternal, have abandoned their posts, leaving humanity to face the consequences of a world without ice. From her helicopter rescue station, paramedic Sarah Chen watches the Atlantic surge crash through the financial district below. Manhattan, her Manhattan, where she was born, where she fell in love, transforms into a modern-day Atlantis before her eyes. Sarah remembers the honking symphony of yellow cabs on these streets. Now she hears only the rush of seawater channeling between glass towers, carrying with it the detritus of a drowned civilization, traffic lights still blinking beneath the waves. The subway system, once the city's circulatory network, has become a submerged maze of flooded tunnels where emergency lights flicker beneath the waves like dying stars. From the 50th floor of a half-submerged skyscraper, survivors watch their world dissolve. The Statue of Liberty stands waist-deep in the harbor, her torch now a beacon for the displaced millions seeking higher ground. Across the globe, this scene repeats with devastating consistency. Miami's Art Deco skyline emerges from the waves like geometric coral reefs. London's Thames Barrier, humanity's proud defense against the sea, lies broken and overwhelmed. In Venice, the ancient piazzas have vanished entirely, leaving only the highest cathedral spires piercing the surface. The ocean has claimed not just land, but centuries of human achievement. Coastal megacities that housed nearly half the world's population have become underwater museums, their streets transformed into canals navigated by desperate survivors in makeshift boats. The age of coastal civilization has ended, and the great migration inland has begun. The highways stretch endlessly into the haze, rivers of humanity flowing inland from the drowned coasts. "Mama, when can we go home?" The little girl tugs at her mother's weathered jacket. Around them, 630 million stories unfold in endless convoy lines, each family abandoning ancestral homes to rising seas. "Soon, mija," her mother lies, knowing home exists only in memory now. From Bangladesh to Miami, from Alexandria to Jakarta, entire populations move like ancient nomads, but with nowhere left to roam. The displaced carry their lives in waterproof bags and solar-powered devices, their children born into a world where home is wherever the water hasn't reached yet. Refugee camps sprawl across former farmlands, temporary cities that become permanent as the old world slips beneath the waves. The fortunate find shelter in the emerging climate havens, northern Canada, Siberia, Antarctica's ice-free shores. But competition is fierce. Border walls rise higher as nations struggle with unprecedented immigration pressures. Languages blend in roadside markets where Bangladeshi fishermen trade with Floridian engineers, and Maldivian artists paint murals on Alaskan community center walls. This exodus reshapes civilization itself, cultures mixing, new societies forming, old boundaries dissolving like the ice that once seemed permanent. In refugee camps turned cities, 8-year-old Amir speaks Bengali to his grandmother, Spanish to his friends, English to his teachers. When they ask where he's from, he points to his grandmother's faded photographs. "From stories," he says, "from underwater places." Marine biologist Dr. James Crawford descends into cathedral silence, his breathing apparatus the only sound disturbing what were once humanity's greatest achievements. 20 years ago, he'd honeymooned in Miami. Now he studies how coral colonizes his old hotel balcony. 30 meters below the surface, the Statue of Liberty stands like a forgotten goddess, her crown barely visible through the emerald murk. Schools of tropical fish weave between her upraised arm and torch, now home to coral colonies that paint her copper skin in brilliant oranges and purples. The ocean has claimed not just the monument, but the very concept of what it represented. In the distance, the spires of Miami's skyline create an artificial reef system, their glass facades long since shattered and colonized by marine life. Venice, already familiar with rising waters, has become a true underwater city, its gondola routes now swimming lanes for dolphins that navigate between submerged palazzos. The pyramids of Giza, ancient survivors of millennia, find themselves surrounded by a new kind of eternity, the endless blue of the Mediterranean Sea that has crept inland across the Nile Delta. These monuments, once symbols of human ambition, reaching toward the sky, now serve as silent testimony to nature's ultimate authority. They have become accidental sanctuaries, artificial reefs that nurture new ecosystems, even as they mourn the civilization that created them. Emergency Coordinator Lisa Torres grips her radio as reports flood in. Hypercane Category 6 forming off Greenland, 200 MEP or sustained winds, eye wall spanning 3 time zones. Her hands shake. The weather models she trusted for 20 years mean nothing now. Earth's weather system has gone insane. Where predictable seasons once ruled, erratic tempests now reign supreme. Massive hypercanes, storm systems beyond traditional hurricane categories, spiral across the expanded oceans with sustained winds exceeding 200 mph, their eyes spanning entire continents. These meteorological monsters draw energy from the superheated seas, spawning waterspouts that reach impossible heights, connecting ocean to stratosphere like cosmic umbilical cords. Extreme temperature swings plague the remaining landmasses. Desert regions experience flash floods that carve new canyons in hours, while former temperate zones endure heat domes, pushing temperatures past 140-degree Ps. The jet stream fragments into chaotic eddies, triggering simultaneous blizzards in tropical latitudes and scorching heat waves in polar regions. Lightning storms of unprecedented intensity illuminate the sky for weeks, their electromagnetic pulses disrupting all remaining technology. Atmospheric rivers, corridors of concentrated water vapor, dump years' worth of rain in single events, creating instant inland seas that evaporate just as quickly. The very air becomes weaponized, carrying salt spray hundreds of miles inland, poisoning soil and vegetation. This is Earth's new reality, a planet where weather patterns have evolved beyond recognition, creating a world where survival means adapting to constant, violent change. The Ganges Delta stretches before us like a wounded giant, its arteries bleeding salt. What was once the world's largest river delta, a verdant tapestry of rice paddies and fishing villages, now writhes under an invisible assault. Hydrogeologist Maria Santos tastes the well water, still sweet, but for how long? The ocean, swollen with melted ice, doesn't just rise, it infiltrates, creeping through underground channels. She has a choice: evacuate the village now, or wait for more data and risk 20,000 lives. Satellite imagery reveals the shocking truth. Salt water has penetrated 200 kilometers inland, transforming fertile agricultural land into barren, salt-crusted wasteland. In Bangladesh, 20 million climate refugees flee northward as their ancestral wells turn brackish, their crops wither, and their livelihoods dissolve into brine. The Sundarbans mangrove forests, once a natural barrier, now stand as skeletal sentinels in water, too salty even for their salt-adapted roots. This isn't just flooding, it's biological warfare on a continental scale. Ancient aquifers that took millennia to form are contaminated in decades, their sweet water replaced by the ocean's bitter embrace. From the Nile Delta to Miami's water table, from Vietnam's Mekong to California's Central Valley, the same story unfolds. The sea's revenge against the land, claiming not just territory, but the very essence of terrestrial life. The morning sun blazes mercilessly over what was once America's breadbasket. Sarah Chen, an agricultural engineer, stands at the edge of a vast hydroponic facility carved into the Canadian Shield, one of humanity's new growing centers. Below her stretches an endless maze of vertical farms, their LED arrays casting an ethereal purple glow across towering crop towers. The irony crushes her soul. Her grandmother's Iowa farm lies beneath 20 feet of salt water, while she grows food in artificial caves, We're farming like moles, she whispers, watching robots tend crops that will never feel real sunlight. What have we become? Through reinforced windows, she watches automated harvesters tend to genetically modified crops designed to thrive in artificial environments. The facility processes data from thousands of sensors, adjusting nutrients, humidity, and light spectrums in real time. Outside, the landscape tells a different story. Abandoned grain elevators stand like monuments to a lost agricultural age, their steel frames rusting in the humid air. Salt-contaminated soil stretches to the horizon where storm systems, intensified by the transformed climate, regularly sweep across the barren expanse. This is humanity's new covenant with the earth, trading open fields for sealed environments, natural cycles for algorithmic precision, in a desperate race to feed 10 billion people on a planet that no longer recognizes its own reflection. The Arctic permafrost cracks like thunder as millennia-old ice surrenders to relentless heat. Dr. Elena Vasquez adjusts her hazmat suit's ventilation system, watching her breath fog in the -40 air, a temperature that would have been unthinkable in this region just decades ago. Her team's drilling equipment pierces through layers of time, each meter revealing darker secrets trapped in crystalline tombs. Elena, you need to see this. Her lab partner's voice cracks through the intercom. The ice core samples glow ominously under UV light. These viral particles, they're not just ancient, they're moving, and our containment protocols weren't designed for pathogens that predate human civilization. Ancient bacteria, perfectly preserved in their frozen prison, begin to stir as laboratory temperatures rise. These microscopic time travelers carry genetic codes unknown to modern science, pathogens that bypassed evolution's normal progression. As the permafrost melts across Siberia and Alaska, releasing methane plumes and carbon dioxide, it also unleashes biological weapons that evolution forgot. Indigenous communities report strange illnesses spreading through wildlife populations. Caribou herds abandon ancient migration routes, their instincts warning of invisible dangers. The team's Geiger counter clicks frantically near certain ice formations. Radioactive materials from prehistoric cosmic events now mobilizing in the meltwater. Elena realizes they're witnessing the planet's fever breaking, releasing not just greenhouse gases, but prehistoric Pandora's boxes that could reshape Earth's biological future in ways climate models never predicted. Portfolio manager Rachel Kim stares at her screen. 89% in red. Her daughter's college fund, her mother's retirement, her own Miami condo, all evaporated in the digital ether. Around her, colleagues weep openly as trillions of dollars in value disappear faster than the ice caps that triggered it all. In gleaming towers of Manhattan's financial district, trading floors descend into chaos as coastal real estate markets collapse overnight. Trillions of dollars in property value evaporate faster than morning mist, leaving investment portfolios in ruins. Insurance companies declare bankruptcy in rapid succession, unable to cover the astronomical flood damage claims that pour in from every continent. The agricultural sector hemorrhages as fertile farmlands disappear beneath rising waters, triggering food price hyperinflation that sends shockwaves through global markets. Supply chains, once the arteries of international commerce, snap like overtaxed cables as ports submerge and transportation networks crumble. Central banks pump liquidity into drowning economies, but their efforts prove futile against the relentless tide of climate-induced economic devastation. Currency values plummet as entire nations face bankruptcy, their coastal cities reduced to modern Atlantises. The interconnected web of global finance, built over centuries of human ambition, unravels in mere decades. This isn't just market correction, it's economic apocalypse on a planetary scale, where the invisible hand of the market is swept away by the very real hand of climate change. Wildlife biologist Dr. Chen Ling follows the migration through her binoculars, tears freezing on her cheeks. Arctic foxes sprint past her blind, their GPS collars blinking desperately as they flee rising waters. "They don't understand what's happening," she radios. "They just know home is drowning." Arctic foxes, their white coats now useless camouflage, trek southward through unfamiliar forests where polar bears once roamed. The tundra that sustained countless species for millennia lies beneath the advancing sea, taking with it entire food webs that evolved over millions of years. In the Amazon basin, now a vast inland sea, jaguars swim between the crowns of submerged trees, their cubs perched precariously on floating logs. Marine ecosystems buckle under the sudden influx of fresh water as glacial melt disrupts ancient currents. Coral reefs, already bleached beyond recognition, crumble into the acidifying depths. Yet life adapts with breathtaking resilience. Coastal birds develop longer legs within generations, wading deeper for fish. Plants sprout aerial roots to survive periodic flooding. Some species, like crocodiles and certain fish, thrive in the new brackish estuaries. But for every adaptation success story, dozens of species vanish silently into extinction. The planet's biodiversity, refined over eons, reshuffles in real time as evolution races against the clock of rising seas. In laboratories buried deep beneath mountain ranges, humanity's brightest minds work against the ticking clock of planetary transformation. Dr. Elena Vasquez adjusts her augmented reality headset, manipulating holographic models of atmospheric carbon extractors, towering machines designed to pull CO2 from the air at unprecedented scales. Around her, engineers test prototypes of stratospheric aerosol injectors, controversial devices that could dim the sun's intensity by spraying reflective particles into the upper atmosphere. The facility hums with desperate innovation. Artificial ice sheets constructed from revolutionary polymers, massive ocean thermal pumps designed to restore deep water circulation, and genetically modified algae capable of sequestering carbon at exponential rates. Through reinforced windows, construction crews assemble the first of thousands of floating cities, self-sustaining habitats that will house millions as coastlines vanish. Elena's hands tremble over the activation codes. Each solution carries enormous risks. The aerosol injectors could trigger ice ages. The artificial glaciers might collapse and trigger tsunamis. "Are we scientists?" her colleague whispers, "or gods playing with forces we don't understand?" Elena's finger hovers over the button that could save or damn the world. Yet as satellite feeds show Antarctica's final ice sheets calving into the ocean, these audacious gambles represent humanity's last chance to engineer a livable future. The question echoes through the sterile corridors. Are we innovative enough to save ourselves from our own success? The old world map has become a relic, its familiar coastlines now submerged beneath 230 feet of risen seas. In the floating capital of Neo-Singapore, diplomats from the Arctic Confederation meet with representatives of the Saharan Republic, nations that emerged from the ashes of climate catastrophe. The geopolitical landscape has been revolutionized. Former superpowers lie partially drowned, while previously marginalized regions have become the new centers of power. Greenland, now ice-free and verdant, controls vast agricultural territories that feed half the world. The Canadian Arctic archipelago has transformed into a Mediterranean-like paradise, its cities gleaming with renewable energy infrastructure. Meanwhile, traditional powers like the eastern United States and northern Europe struggle to maintain influence from their elevated fortress cities. Water has become the ultimate currency, and those who control the desalination plants and atmospheric water generators hold the keys to survival. Migration patterns have created entirely new demographics. Climate refugees have formed floating city-states, their governance structures born from necessity rather than tradition. International law has been rewritten to address maritime sovereignty over submerged territories, while the United Nations operates from a massive floating complex in what was once the Sahara Sea. This is diplomacy in the age of endless water. In a floating classroom above what was once Manhattan, children press their faces against reinforced windows, watching the endless ocean stretch toward distant horizons. Their teacher, Marina, forces a smile while her heart breaks. Born after the Great Melt, she only knows mountains from old videos, snow from her grandfather's stories. How do you explain the feeling of snowflakes to children whose fingers will only know the touch of recycled water? It was like frozen stars that melted on your tongue, she whispers. The holographic globe spins slowly, showing blue where green and brown once flourished. A planet their grandparents would barely recognize. One child raises her hand, her voice carrying the weight of innocence and accusation. Why didn't they stop it when they could? The question hangs in the recycled air like a judgment from the future. Outside, migration ships drift past, carrying the last refugees from the drowned cities of Southeast Asia, their sails catching the warming winds of a world permanently altered. This is the legacy of the Great Melt, not just risen seas and vanished glaciers, but the questions of those who inherit our choices. In their eyes lies both condemnation and hope, for they are the generation that must learn to thrive on the water world we've left them. Their floating cities represent humanity's remarkable adaptability, but also our greatest moral reckoning. The children who must live with what we couldn't prevent. As we stand at the precipice of 2100, contemplating a world transformed by the complete melting of Earth's ice, we are forced to confront the profound responsibility that comes with being the dominant force shaping our planet's destiny. The disappearance of glaciers and ice sheets would not merely redraw our maps, it would redefine what it means to be human in relationship with the natural world. Yet within this sobering reality lies an opportunity for unprecedented unity, as the challenges of rising seas and displaced populations could forge new bonds of compassion and cooperation across all boundaries. In her floating classroom, Marina watches her students design tomorrow's cities, structures that breathe with the tides, communities that thrive on rising seas. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of our species isn't our capacity to alter the world, but our children's ability to love the world we've left them. In their eyes, she sees not what we destroyed, but what they'll create. If we have learned anything from confronting existential challenges throughout history, it is that human ingenuity flourishes when paired with collective purpose. The question is not whether we can adapt to a world without ice, but whether we can evolve into the kind of species worthy of the blue planet that remains. One that sees crisis not as an ending, but as the beginning of a more conscious and caring chapter in the human story.